with the commitments that you've made and that the board president has made, on balance, this is going to be better than co-locations. But none of this is easy. This is really hard and it's really painful, and we have to be realistic, thoughtful, and caring as we go forward with this process. I thank the board for their indulgence.
Thank you. Mr. Kaiser?
Thank you also. Who is it, or which department reviews the application for for one of these augmentation grants? Is that facilities or charter department, or who is that?
It's a joint effort between facilities to review the facilities and development proposal and the charter office to review the charter's performance and operational budget.
But who makes the decision? Who ultimately says, this is a go, we're going to take it to the board for approval?
The proposal is scored, and the proposer has to reach a minimum of 70 points. If they achieve 70 points or above, then they're deemed qualified for an augmentation grant, and then that is brought to the board for your approval.
Now, augmentation grants, I haven't heard that term yet. And who issues the grant and who receives the grant?
The augmentation grant program was something that we initiated in the beginning of this year. It is a way to provide a transparent process for charters to request bond funds that have been earmarked specifically for charter use. Applicants apply. We have on the charter website the RFP. There's a series of criteria that they need to meet. They submit their proposal. An evaluation panel reviews their proposal and scores it, and then it's brought to the board for your approval. And it's a program that we have awarded in the past 2 augmentation grants previously. The board had approved that award. This is our 3rd time, and it is a rolling grant submittal, so charters can continue to apply until the funding is no longer available, and it's put on hold until the board approves further funding.
Okay. You said it's a process to make, it's designed to have a transparent process. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people in this room today who say they didn't know anything about it. How does that wash with the program?
And that's why we're here today, for the board's approval, and it's a public meeting, and people can provide comments on whether or not they support the award of this augmentation grant.
Okay. So the grant goes from the district to the charter operator?
Correct.
And when the charter operator uses that grant to obtain property or build property, such as this item here today, do they own the property? Who owns the property?
The district owns the property.
And continues to own the property?
Correct.
So it's not really a grant, then. They're not actually getting money, but they're getting a project that's worth a certain amount of money.
The funds that we'll be providing is the gap financing necessary for them to develop and construct their permanent facility on the district-owned site. So the money is a grant that will go towards the construction of building this facility.
And are there requirements that the grant, in the grant, that says that when the facility is being built, it's going to be built by district contractors and employers?
Yes. As a requirement of the grant, they need to use qualified contractors that have been approved by the board. They also have to meet DSA requirements, DTSC requirements. They have to go through the CEQA certification process. So all of the requirements that the district typically has in its new construction, the charter would be required to follow as well.
I'm sorry, you said DSA also?
DSA as well.
And would it be union workers who would be building the project?
Yes, they have to pay, they have to follow the PSA and pay prevailing wage.
And how about the maintenance of the project? Who will mop the floors at night?
That will be negotiated in the development agreement. The charter can either opt to use their own maintenance and operations folks, or they can opt to use the district's.
And if they use their own, would their own people be represented by a union?
I don't know.
I've noticed, for example, at one of the schools in my district, at Sotomayor, the charter schools are not using union labor. So could it be put into the grant if it's before it's approved, that they would use union labor to maintain the school?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't know all of the ramifications of that.
Is there somebody from our legal staff who might know the answer to that?
I'd have to get back to you on that as well, Mr. Kaiser.
Okay, well, I hope that we won't be voting on this. It's a very important thing to me. You know, I have a similar situation in the 5th District with Irving Middle School, where a charter came in co-locating with Prop 39, and they took over a single building, and it turned out they took away all of the 8th grade science classrooms. So to make up for that, I guess the district facilities department was going to reuse a bungalow, one of the portables, and convert it into a science classroom for the 8th grade. Now, I was a 7th grade teacher, and I taught in those bungalows while remodeling was going on in the main building. And they were suitable for maybe about 24 kids, 26 kids, to be used as a 7th grade classroom, and refitting them to be a science room. Well, we'd have to have the small classes. We'd have to have 14 student classes, like Ms. Lamont figured out with the number of students and the number of classrooms that they occupy. I'm not sure how they qualify for more Prop 39 if they're underutilizing the classrooms. Could you explain that, as a matter of fact? Or would somebody else who's more familiar perhaps with Prop 39 explain that?
Can you repeat your question? Is it how does Monseñor qualify for additional space under Prop 39?
Yeah, when they only have 14 students per room, per classroom. How do they?
No, they run 2 different campuses. The original population is on 2 different campuses, sir.
How many are there today?
There's currently 340 students occupying 15 classrooms, and they have 1 administrative space.
Right.
Okay, but Mr. Kaiser, one of the things that we're in litigation about is the loading numbers in classrooms. And that is, I mean, again,
This is just a way for the charter schools to push out local kids from their neighborhood school, is what it is.
okay, but to your specific question about how numbers could be lower, that's what we're in litigation about, is equity around the loading numbers for Prop 39.
Are we in favor of higher numbers or lower numbers in our litigation?
We are in favor of equitable numbers between district schools and charter schools.
How many kids are there per classroom at Burendo?
I'm not sure specifically, but if you take 340 students and you divide it by 15, you get approximately 22 students per classroom.
Right.
Okay, and that's for the charter school.
Correct.
How about the neighborhood school?
They're loading per district norms.
So, once again, the charter school,
25.
25 for the classrooms in the,
They participate in KSR.
In the neighborhood kids, okay. If this construction is done, will the physical education space stay the same, or will it shrink, or will it grow bigger?
At this point, since we haven't developed or started the design of the charter school, it would be difficult for me to answer that question. However, what we're planning to do is remove the 14 portables that currently occupy play space and build a permanent facility. So we hope that that it's net neutral at the campus. But again, those designs are something that we would start the conversation, if this item is approved, to begin to work on exactly those kinds of details.
And if the item weren't approved, could those bungalows still be moved out so the kids would have a better field to play on?
No, under Prop 39, those bungalows will have to continue to be at that school, and the charter would continue to be at this site through Prop 39.
Are any of the bungalows, forgive me, I don't remember the three groups, Escudia?
No. None of the portables currently at this site are slated to be removed or mandated removals, either ORG or Escudia removals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I may have another couple questions in a few minutes.
Okay, board members.
Yeah, I have a question. In my haste, in my previous question, I allowed Burendo to get mixed up with the charter school. The charter school is the watch school. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say, Ms. Lamont.
Okay.
Berendo is achieving
I just need to clear that
Romero
up.
as a watch.
Okay, and because the charter school is a watch school, we're building permanent facilities for them. If it's a watch school that is not successful, what happens to that school?
Well, it's yours.
Okay, it
Yours is
becomes a
in the board.
district.
Correct.
So I think we're looking at 320 kids and 16 rooms. That's about 20 kids a classroom, and this goes back to the loading that we talked about earlier with the classrooms. When I say this is bigger than all of this, it involves a lot of the resolutions we are considering and the number of students these teachers have now. I looked at the plan, and it's a total school. So what part of the school campus will the new school still have to use the Berendos?
Again, that is something that we would begin the discussion on if this item is approved. The options could be.
So you haven't, this is not a part of the discussion?
It has not been a part of the discussion
So
yet.
if I were a teacher at Burendo, I wouldn't know whether or not my PE facilities would have to be used or anything else until after I have made that decision.
We haven't had the discussion yet of whether this school will be completely separate and on its own, or whether there will be joint fields.
But the
used by
instructions
the
are
charter.
begin talking. And if I'm going to talk to you, I need to know if my science lab is going to move, if my PE lab won't be there. That's discussion, that's transparency, and we're not being transparent. And I think, Mr. Superintendent, if a school has to be shared, we promise the school a traditional calendar. We're not giving it a traditional calendar. There are certain things that we ought to consider that's going to be permanent at least for 2 years. And I think it needs to be discussed. And who for us is saying this is what we want to discuss?
But if I may ask you, in the 1D grant, I'm trying to get the answer, Ms. Slot. I'm trying. In the 1D grant, is there anything in that grant where there has been an application to move any of the district buildings, any of our district facilities? I mean, wouldn't they have to say in the grant that they are going to, that part of their funding would be for that type of movement and things like that? Because in the previous 1D grants that I've been involved with, you've got to say if you're going to do that as part of the grant cycle. So have they said that they're going to do any of those kind of things?
So the 1D grant is the Charter School Facilities Program grants
That's what I'm saying.
that the charter received to build this project.
Right.
As a requirement of that project, they have to remove the 14 portables that are currently
Got-
on the project.
I understand that. But what I'm saying, what I'm asking is, Mrs. Lamott's question was, have they applied to move anything else? Have they applied, is anywhere in that grant, like, I'm gonna move a gym, or I'm gonna move, I'm gonna move this field, that's not in there, right?
No.
So that, I mean, that is, so at least the technical answer to that question is, if they were going to do those things, they would have had to apply for the money in the grant. So unless we're gonna do those things, I mean,
No, as part of their grant application, they are required to do certain improvements at the school. Those improvements have not yet been specified because they have not yet been determined.
but if there was major, if they had to do like a relocation of a campus building or anything with that type of expense, it would have to be delineated in that grant, and I'm assuming that there's nothing in there for that.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Crane, can you call a roll?
On tab 1, the postponed item, Ms. Gallatin.
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser.
I can't vote for this. I can't give an affirmative vote for this if there's going to be union jobs taken away, if kids are going to be losing their play space, and if kids are going to be pushed out of their neighborhood school. I have, before I cast my vote, I was asked by someone in the audience to ask a question. It's kind of controversial, but I'm going to ask it anyway since I'm the second one to be called on. It says, are there any? Thank you. Are there any board members who need to recuse themselves before voting? I vote no.
Heard you as a no vote. Ms. Lamont.
In anticipation of 4, no. You
Heard
done
you as a no
down
vote.
this
Ms.
one?
Martinez. Yes vote. Dr. Vladovic.
Yes.
Yes vote. Mr. Zimmer.
Yes, to avoid Prop 39 co-locations.
Ms. Garcia.
Confident that we can work through our issues, yes.
The item passes.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we are now going